Hello, fam. We are going through our last review for this unit in this video. I mentioned in the solutions for the first review that on the free response, the level of difficulty that you should expect matches these free response problems more than the free response problems in the last review. So keep that in mind as we go through the solutions. We have a scatter plot of the number of semesters required to complete an academic program against the starting salary of those, the students of those programs. So does the scatter plot support the newspaper report about the number of semesters and starting salary? Justify your answer. So essentially what they are asking you to do in this part is to describe the scatter plot, the association, or the relationship. So I am answering the question and then using this as my justification. So yes, the scatter plot shows a moderate positive linear association between number of semesters needed to complete an academic program and their starting salary. In general, as number of semesters increases, starting salary also increases. I could have said, or maybe should have said, yes, the scatter plot supports the newspaper report about number of semesters and starting salary. You wouldn't get marked wrong for not, but now that I'm thinking about it, it may have been better for me to say yes and rephrase the prompt. But essentially, this would get me full credit. Yes, the justification is the scatter plot shows A, and then lead into the interpretation. B, identify the slope and interpret the slope. So one important thing about this question is because they're asking you to identify the slope, they want to see you clearly state what the slope is. So if you just did this bottom part, if you just did the interpretation, you would have gotten partial credit. To get full credit, you needed to clearly say slope equals 1.1594. The interpretation is for every one semester, so make sure that you have your units there, for every one semester needed or required to complete an academic program, the model predicts starting salary will increase by about 1,159.4 euros. Notice that I changed this to euros. Not euros. I changed this to what it really is, which is thousands, because here, notice it says that this is in thousands of euros. So you want to be careful that you didn't say 1.1594 euros, because it's not 1.15 euros. It's 1,150 euros. So make sure that you either wrote 1159.4 euros or 1.1594 thousand euros. Hopefully that is clear. You needed to clearly indicate for every one semester and have the accurate amount of euros. That's why those are highlighted. Is a linear model appropriate for these data? This is the wrong question. Sorry about that. So now we have an independent researcher who looks at this and notices that there is a trend within each major. So based on the people in the sample, describe the association between the starting salary and the number of semesters for the business majors. So you're using this interpretation again, but you're looking only at the group of students that I have circled. So for business majors, there is a strong negative linear association between the number of semesters needed to complete an academic program and their starting salary. In general, as number of semesters increases for business majors, their starting salary decreases. Based on people in the sample, compare the median starting salaries for the 3 majors. So I have written here middle. I have highlighted the word compare because it is important that we use comparing words. I meant to highlight these in green. So I highlighted compare in green, and I'm verifying that I have comparing words. Then the other thing that I have highlighted is they want to know the median starting salary. So up here, I have highlighted the starting salary, which means that you are finding the median of this on this axis. So median is what we've always known it to be. It's the middle observation. Each major has 8 observations. You are estimating the middle. So I just went 1, 2, 3, 4, and then tried to split those observations in half. So there's 4 to the left and 4 to the right. I estimated this to be 37,000. For my physics majors, did the same thing. Notice you have 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. I estimated this to be 49,000. And then lastly, for my business, just kidding, my chemistry majors, same thing, 4 to the left, 4 to the right. I have this estimated at 55,000. So now I'm just describing that. Chemistry majors have the largest median salary. I should have said starting salary. Chemistry majors have the largest median starting salary at about 55,000 euros. The median starting salary for physics majors is about 49,000 euros. And business majors tend to have the lowest starting salary with a median of about 37,000 euros. Now, just to let you know what the actual numbers were, the actual medians, it was 55, 48, and 38. So I was pretty close. You should be within 1 on either end. So 56,000 or 54,000. 49,000 or 47,000. 39,000 or 37,000. And then the last one, this is the one that is a challenge. So when you get graded for this problem, they grade it in 4 different sections. So section 1 is these 2 problems. You would get 1 point for these 2 sections. Then you would get a point for this, a point for this, and a point for this. I'm mentioning that because this is the challenging part of this program, this problem. I think that this is what takes the difficulty level up from what you saw on the last review, and it does contribute a substantial amount towards your overall score. So they need to, or they could, modify the report to include the negative association within each major. So based on the analysis conducted by the independent researcher, what should the newspaper do? Well, they should not only give the overall association, because that's still true. Overall, there is a positive association, but they also need to include that within each major there's a negative association. If all they did was included the overall, that would be a little bit misleading. So my response is the report could be modified to include the negative association within each major. Overall, majors that require more semesters to complete the academic program tend to have higher starting salaries. However, within each major, as number of semesters required increases, starting salary decreases. So to get full credit on this part, you needed to indicate that the report should include both, that overall there is a positive association, but within each major there is a negative association. The first few parts on this should have been doable. Between your phrases to memorize, between this card and doing the other reviews, A through D should have been okay. If you missed a few things here and there, like you didn't catch the Euros thing, you're probably on the right track. Just remember that for your exam. The one that is meant to be the challenging one, like I said, is this one. So if you struggled with part E, that's okay. Now you know, now you have an idea of how they might expect you to stretch your understanding or show your ability to analyze a set of data that you haven't necessarily seen before and analyze it differently. So I'm not sure that we have talked in depth about scatter plots that have an overall positive association, but then within it there's a negative association. I think you've seen it, but I don't think we've talked in depth. So you would have gotten a 3 out of 4 even if you left that blank, which is not bad, and 3 out of 4 is definitely going to be enough to move you toward passing the AP exam. Our last question is about the number of rail cars and fuel consumption. So essentially we are looking at how much fuel did a train consume based on the number of rail cars that are attached to that train. And I think that this positive association is not surprising. The more weight you put on the train, the more fuel it's going to take to get that train moving. We get the actual data, scatter plot, residual plot, computer output. So we're getting the complete picture of this data. And they want us to start by determining whether a linear model is appropriate for this data. So we've talked many times about how when you are determining if a linear model is appropriate, the residual plot is the thing that you want to be talking about. So I have a linear model is appropriate for this data because the scatter plot shows random scatter. And in parentheses I have there is no obvious leftover pattern. It doesn't matter how you phrase it, as long as you are saying that there's no leftover pattern in the residual plot, so you know that a linear model is appropriate. You want to make sure that you are using the word residual plot and either random scatter or no obvious leftover pattern. Also, make sure that you're addressing the question they're asking. Is a linear model appropriate? Yes, a linear model is appropriate. You want to rephrase as much as you can or repeat the prompt as much as you can remember to. Okay, B is the challenging question in this set of problems. If B was tough, that's okay. Now that you've been exposed to it, hopefully it'll help you in the future. So I wouldn't be too worried about it, but I would make sure that you feel good about the explanation behind it. So suppose the fuel consumption is $25 per unit. Give a point estimate. So this is just fancy for give an estimate for the change in average cost of fuel per mile for each additional rail car attached to the train. Show your work. So even if you wrote down the right answer, if you didn't write down how you got that answer, you wouldn't get full credit. I've written more than is necessary because I am trying to explain to you my thought process. When I'm done going through this, I will tell you what is required for full credit. So from the computer output, we have that slope is 2.1495. How I knew to look at slope was this wording here for each additional rail car. So the one thing that we've talked about related to this idea of what happens when you put on another one or another one, that's slope. That's describing slope. And in your phrases to memorize, even our sentence frames have this wording for each or for every. So that is what indicated to me, well, let's look at slope. Well, what this slope means is that for each additional rail car, our model predicts fuel consumption will increase by 2.1495 units. So whatever your units are, we don't know what it is, but we know that it's going to go up by 2.1495 units. Well, this problem is telling us now your unit is $25. So we now have more information. It's not going to go up by 2.1495 units. It's going to go up by 2.1495 times 25, because that's our unit. So if our unit is 25, then fuel consumption is estimated to cost the amount that it increases by multiplied by the cost. So about $53.74 for each additional rail car. So the key here was look at the slope. Each additional rail car requires an increase in 2.1495 units. If each unit costs $25, then our cost is going to go up by $53.74 per rail car. So hopefully that explanation is sufficient. As I'm always saying, if that's not making sense, and you're worried, please email me, send me a video message, come in and see me. I said this at the very end of the last review video, which I really think nobody gets to. I'm getting to the point where I'm not sure that anybody's even watching these, but if you are watching these and you have questions, if that explanation wasn't sufficient, please email me and give me one more chance to explain it. I might be able to think of a different way to have it make sense to you. If you email me and say, I just don't get it, I don't get anything about it, I don't know how to help because I don't know where you get lost. So if you email me and say, I just don't get it, I'm going to email back and say, well, at what point do you get lost? And not because I'm trying to be a jerk, but because I'm trying to identify at what point I need to start making things clearer or explaining things differently. So anyways, if this is confusing and you're worried about this particular problem, please email me. I truly am happy to help. I want to help. So yeah, that's that. C should have been okay for you. It's literally just taking the phrase to memorize. So about 96.7% of the variation in fuel consumption can be explained by the number of rail cars when using the least squares regression line. And then D, would it be reasonable to use the fitted regression equation to predict for 75 rail cars? And the answer is no. It is not reasonable to use the fitted regression equation to predict fuel consumption for 65 rail cars because we would be extrapolating. So notice I did exactly what I wrote here. Answer or repeat the prompt and then end with because we are extrapolating. I did a shortened version of this phrase to memorize below. So what I used was, we only have data for up to 50 rail cars, so we don't know if the linear trend continues beyond that, and that is enough to get me full credit. I forgot on this last problem that I was going to tell you what you needed to earn all the points. All you needed to earn full credit on this problem is this statement here. That's what they mean by show work. You should say for each additional rail car, I'm not even sure you need to have all this. I literally think that you could have just done what I have highlighted here and gotten full credit. So that is all of our review problems. If you're intending to be successful on this exam, you're going to need to put in some time studying. One thing that I want to mention about studying, when you guys are preparing for a quiz or an exam, it's not enough to have just completed the practice problems. Like, I think that some of you guys think, okay, if I survived the homework, I can do the test. But I think sometimes what you're forgetting is, well, did you watch the solutions video? Did you feel good about the solutions video? And could you do this? Can you do again and get 100% without any notes and without any help? Lots of teachers have in their classrooms the 1, 2, 3, 4 of where their understanding is. And a 4 is, I know it and I could teach it to other people. A 3 is, I can do it. And a 2 is, I can do it, but I need help. I would need a little bit of help. And I think a lot of you guys come to your quizzes and your tests at a 2. You can do it, but you need help. You can do it, but you need your notebook. You can do it, or you need to ask me a clarifying question. And if you want to pass your AP exam, if you want to earn an A in this class, you have to be at a 4. You have to know it and be able to help others. So I guess I shouldn't say teach others. You need to know it and be able to help others. And that means that you could help somebody with their homework, that you could do that homework again on your own, no notes, and have essentially everything that I had in the solutions videos. So if you are somebody that has kept up with the work and watches the solutions videos, you're probably in a really good place. If you're not, I'm not imagining that you're going to spend the next week going through and watching all the solutions videos. So realistically, what you should focus on is your review, your reviews. And if you're watching this, then hopefully that means that you did them, and obviously you watched the solutions video. But now you need to move toward being able to do it on your own. No notes, no help. And I'm not sure how to teach somebody to study. I only know what works for me, and I know that that's writing things out. Like, for me, this overview is how I study. I would have written this out on my own by hand and summarized the whole chapter. And then I would have made flashcards and used those flashcards to refresh my memory on all of the different concepts in this chapter. So for me, I need to write it and I need to memorize it. It was never enough for me to just take the notes and do the can you do. If that's not how you learn, maybe you're an auditory learner, maybe what you need to do instead is go back through and just listen to the lessons again. Especially the ones that especially for like identify problems that you struggled with, and then just go back and watch that part of the lesson or watch that can you do to get the extra information. So if you're a tactile learner, you're going to want to summarize the chapter. If you're an auditory learner, you're going to want to listen to the lessons. If you are a visual learner, you're going to want to look through your notes, and more than once, repeatedly. Repetition is the key to stick with itness. I don't know. Repetition is the key to remembering. Maybe that's what I meant. So I don't know. I don't necessarily know how to teach you to study, but I know that you need to find out what works for you, and if you're not scoring well, you haven't found out what works yet. It's not that you're dumb. It's not that you don't get it. It's not that you didn't put in enough work. It's that you haven't figured it out yet, and you can. And I'm happy to help you do that. But it'll be an investigative process for you and me. But I'm happy to help where I can. So, yeah. If I think of anything that I think would help in terms of studying, I will post that for you. I'm still planning to put up flashcards, but like I said, the best advice that I have is write it, listen to it, look through it. Love you guys. Email me with any questions.